The eternal conflict between hell and heaven has officially begun with the release of Diablo IV, and of course we're going to cover the entire story and get into all the juicy details that the game has to offer. An important note before we start, we will be breaking down all of the stories with the different acts of Diablo IV in separate videos, and then afterwards we'll go out with the complete story all in one, so you guys can watch along at your own pace. Since this video will be covering Act 1 of Diablo IV, I would like to mention that if you've seen our previous video covering the story of the beta version of the game, this video is going to be very similar, as it will be covering the exact same act as that video did, just with minor changes with the added points from the 4 release. Without further ado, let's get into the video. We can see a cold, desolate landscape, while an unnamed narrator gives us an explanation of the history of Sanctuary, saying that Sanctuary was never meant for mankind. Instead, it was forged as a refuge from the war between the heavens and hell itself. However, it did just end up becoming another battlefield in the conflict. A secretive group called the Herodrum has kept mortals safe during this conflict, but it's now a shadow of its former self, as Sanctuary's ancient creators have now returned to claim the hearts of mankind. This is a story of their downfall. As dusk begins to set in, our protagonist finds an ominous statue as whispers begin filling the surrounding trees. Our horse makes a crucial survival mistake and runs towards the creepy voices. It turns out exactly as you would expect. Our only light goes out as the whispers grow louder, but thankfully we learn from our horse's mistake and make a quick exit. As the new day begins, the weather continues to get worse. Our protagonist finds a cave that we can use as shelter from the elements, and takes a quick rest at the entrance. I mentioned in the beta video that I have watched my fair share of survival shows in my time, and I stand by the fact that you do not fall asleep in the cold without a fire. It is a very quick way to lose some of your digits. And to be fair, sleeping next to satanic wolves is also adding another very quick way of losing digits, or your soul. Surprisingly, against all odds, we awake and decide to find better shelter in a nearby town. We manage to find an abandoned town called Nevesk, where we hear some voices coming from a nearby barn. Turns out, not an abandoned town. The people in the barn are talking about demons in the darkness, while one of them is complaining about an injury from a bite. Apparently, the bite victim wandered into town and began causing trouble. He begins speaking about demons that are spilling out from a nearby ruin, and that they will kill them all. The lovely and totally not evil locals take us to their tavern and explain how a ruin from the north has evil stirring from within, and that the monk must have gone inside, adding that even a holy man like himself is not safe from being driven mad by the evils held within. We can begin to see that this town has its own small community, as Varney asks us to help the town by protecting them from the demons that are spilling out of the ruins. We agree to help and head out. We get to the ruins and it is exactly as described, a complete den of Satan's greatest hits, but we do manage to get the best of them and return back to town. They declare us the community's one true hero and thank us profusely for saving the town before inviting us to some festivities. Lots of beer and food in celebration of our achievement. And it's great. We start partying it up with the locals, and before we know it, we've been roofied, passed out, dribbling all over the damn table. It takes all but 5 seconds before Oswin starts wheeling in a wheelbarrow to drag us out of the tavern. I mean, this is a crap situation, but you have to commend the efficiency. But I have seen horror films, and evil townspeople working together against the tourist always end one way: human sacrifice. Just wait, you'll see. We get an interesting proverb come up while we get some much needed shut-eye, and I quote, "I saw my corpse, and from my mouth crawled hatred. A father burned his children on a pyre, and a mother moulded a new age from the ashes. I saw the weak made strong, a pack of lambs feasting on wolves. Tears of blood rained on a desert jewel, and the way to hell has torn asunder. Then came a spear of light, piercing hatred's heart, and he who was bound in chains was set free." This is described as Rathma's prophecy, something we'll learn much more about as we progress through the acts. We get wheeled out of the barn behind the town, and let's just say that the saying "business in the front, party in the back" has never made so much sense. Oswin grabs some petals and begins some form of ritual by feeding us blood. A man comes from behind and helps us out, and we have to fight the locals. We thank the locals for their hospitality, and as Varney dies, she mentions that we are now blessed like them now. It's revealed that the man was actually the holy man from the barn earlier. He explains that the heretics drugged him after he returned from the ruins, just like us. When he came to his wits, he tried to escape but couldn't get inside the chapel since it was locked. The recent events catch up to us as we begin throwing up. Yosef points out that we're actually vomiting blood and petals. Not petals and blood, but literal petals made from blood. We tell him that they fed it to us, and he believes that it's from a ritual, stating that we should head to the chapel to find answers since they must keep it locked for a good reason. Inside, we find more blood petals on the ground. As we inspect them, we see a vision from the past. The church's bell tolls for morning prayer, with the laughter of children filling the surrounding area. This town used to be quite a happy place. The townspeople gather and we can see that one of them is Vani. The priest begins to call them shameful, since the Father has granted them a path to salvation, but they stray from it at every opportunity. Drinking, gambling, stealing, all shameful acts. Blood petals begin falling from above the priest, landing on his Bible. We can hear the voice of Lilith from behind. She tells the priest that sin is their birthright. We get this really cool but equally creepy shot of the demonic silhouette being contrasted by the church's window. She tells the townspeople that the lords of hell are coming to devour this world, and that their salvation is not in the light, but instead in themselves. That their faith has taught them to deny their heart's desire and turn them into a prisoner within themselves. The priest is having a mild end-of-life crisis at this stage. The townspeople are slowly turning to Lilith's way of thinking, and the priest notices this and pleads with them to resist her temptations. It ends really poorly for the priest as Lilith speaks to a man named Elias. He tells her that the townspeople have awakened. She responds that they're just the first of many, and that their true work begins now. We awake outside the church to speak to Yosef about our vision. When he hears the description of Lilith, he tenses up, stating that it can't be possible. He explains that he must report back to the cathedral immediately, telling us to look for a hermit to the north. He apparently has questionable loyalty, but knows about the forbidden, asking us to bring the hermit to the cathedral in Kiovershad. We agree and head north. We arrive at the cabin and find it empty, taking the opportunity to look for clues. The hermit arrives home with a deer and invites us to supper. I must say, a very surprising way to treat a home invader rifling through your belongings. We tell him about everything that has happened thus far, and he mentions that the reason for our visions is due to the villagers feeding us the blood of Lilith, the daughter of hatred and mother of sanctuary. She was banished ages ago, and this entire world was her creation. He says that it was prophesied that she would return one day. We ask what it is that she wants, and he says that he doesn't know. Only that Sanctuary has been a battleground for the conflict between angels and demons, but Lilith doesn't actually serve either side. Instead, she has her own plans for humankind. We ask if we're now corrupted since we've drunk her blood, to which the hermit says that he isn't sure, but we undoubtedly share a connection with her now. We pledge to use this new connection to figure out what she's after. The hermit agrees to help us. We reach Kiovershad, and the hermit, whose name is Rathma, buys a horse from the town stables, and we ask him what he's doing. He says that while we go to the cathedral, he plans to head out to the dry steppes and search for the pale man from our vision. He is referring to Elias. We go on to ask him about Anarius, and he tells us how the cathedral love to go on about him, his imprisonment in hell, his valiant escape, and then his glorious return to Sanctuary, the world that he created. This is the entity that the priest from the vision was referring to as the Father. He is an angel, not God if you understandably mistook that. But he and Lilith are jointly responsible for the creation of Sanctuary. Anarius is the father, while Lilith is the mother of Sanctuary, the shared creation of a demon and angel. He asks us to retrieve some things from the local blacksmith, which turns out to be his old weapon and amulet, suggesting that he led a very interesting life before becoming a hermit. As he begins to leave, we hear the narration again, this time revealing that the narrator is actually Rathma, speaking from the future on what would be past events. He says how at the time, after meeting us, he believed that he had a chance to protect humanity from the daughter of hatred, that the Wanderer's connection to her gave him hope, only to begin laughing, suggesting that his having hope was stupid in hindsight. We head to the Cathedral of Light and find Yosef before the Reverend Mother Prava. She is giving him a blessing. Yosef asks us why Lilith didn't accompany us, and what could possibly be of more import. We respond with only one word: Lilith. Mother Prava explains that she received word from one of her knights of a demon that matches our description of Lilith exactly, asking us to travel to Yelesna to verify the sightings. She initially intended to send Lorath, but since he didn't arrive, we will be taking his place. We head to Yelesna Mines and meet a knight named Vigo. There is a young woman nearby that yells at Vigo, saying that she knows what she saw. A horned demon that walked past where we stand. She is concerned since her mother is with that demon and begins questioning Vigo why he would let her mother through. Vigo explains that it's fine since they have soldiers stationed inside. Neyrelle says that he should be worried for them as well before turning to us and asking us for help finding her mother. She tells us that she studies the Herodrum alongside her mother, that they were on something big but her mother ran off, which is unusual for her to just abandon the hunt like that. We tell Vigo that the Reverend Mother sent us, and tell him that the horned woman is the demon Lilith. This scares Neyrelle, since her mother has taught her the name when she was young, mentioning that she is the fabled daughter of hatred. Vigo agrees to lead us into the mine, fearing that the Reverend Mother would be angry at him. While inside the mine, Neyrelle notices that Vigo is wearing her mother's charm on his wrist. Vigo says that it's now his, since she gave it to him when he let her and her friend pass through. We arrive at an internal door and hear mumbling from the other side. It turns out to be the station knights. Most of them dead on the floor, but luckily one is still breathing, barely. Vigo asks him what happened and the knight responds that it was the woman that they were escorting. Not Neyrelle's mother, but the woman accompanying them, saying that she wasn't human, that she turned into a demon, claiming that she mothered Sanctuary and then it was just a bloodbath. Neyrelle asks him what happened to Venard, her mother. The knight responds that she begged for her life. Lilith spared her and led her deeper inside the mine. The knight tells Vigo that nothing worked on Lilith, that he needs to tell Prava to raise the army, and that the father himself needs to know that evil itself walks within Sanctuary. Vigo is angry that Venard told him that the charm would bring him good fortune, feeling that he was lied to. Neyrelle realizes that her mother bribed Vigo with the charm so that he would allow her inside the mine, since nobody was actually meant to be let through at all. Neyrelle believes that her mother can still be saved, but Vigo says that he will not continue onwards. He will report back to Prava. Neyrelle calls him a coward and asks us to help her, which we agree to do. As we make our way through the demon-infested mines, we find blood petals on the floor. When we touch them, we can see small glimpses of the past, this time the conversations between Lilith and Venard. We can see from the beginning that Venard is terrified of Lilith, but Lilith tells her that she has what she seeks, knowledge, even dragging her child across Sanctuary in pursuit of it. And since she knows the very fabric of the cosmos, she can give her all the answers to those questions. Venard is concerned since everything that she has ever read has warned her against Lilith, with Lilith mentioning that she has read so much yet knows so little. Venard reluctantly agrees to the offer of knowledge. We can find these stones with writing across them that were left by Venard, giving us some backstory on what happened. The first stone tells us that Lilith saw a way to escape the eternal conflict between heaven and hell. It started with the seduction of the angel Inarius, and as it turns out, he was just as valuable as any man. The second stone explains that she used Inarius to craft this world, which shocked Venard since the true origin of the world came from the union of a demon and angel, and from that came the first generation of humanity. That first generation was powerful, able to move mountains and even shake the seas. Venard mentions that Lilith was especially proud in the telling of this particular part, that she bore a son together with Inarius named Rathma. He was the first to untangle the power of necromancy, and his lair lies further within the mine. Lilith mentions that she can sense Venard is curious why she was spared before telling her that she is going to meet her son. Lilith describes him as being the key to her plans. The next vision shows Lilith mentioning just how she can sense the pain from within Venard, and that she misses her daughter. Venard says that she knows that her daughter will be scared right now. So, Lilith gives her a choice. She can go or she can stay. Venard chooses to stay, saying that her daughter will be fine since she's strong. Lilith is happy with this choice, and tells her that to reach Rathma, they will need to perform a ritual, which she will teach her. And the first lesson is that blood is the key. We manage to find Venard, who has drawn patterns in writing in her own blood on the ground. When Neyrelle approaches, she tells her daughter that across the necropolis is a trove of magic and knowledge. She opened the way for Lilith, but she could not pass through with her because she lacked the divine element. Neyrelle pleads with her mother to stop, concerned by her mother writing in her own blood. We can begin to see that Vernard has changed significantly, telling her that Lilith has awakened her, showing her things that she can't even put into words. Neyrelle tells her that she couldn't care what she showed her and attempts to grab her mother's arm to guide her out of the mines. Vernard pulls a knife out on her own daughter, calling her clever, trying to lead her away so she can take all of this for herself. Definitely short a few marbles, if you know what I'm saying. She cuts Neyrelle on the arm, and she tells her that she will now finish drawing these runes with our blood instead. She goes full demonic witch mode and begins summoning demons to fight us. We manage to fight them off, but it ends with Vernard dying. Neyrelle is distraught and says that Lilith will pay for what she's done, telling us to go back to Reverend Mother Prava to get blessed, allowing us to enter Rathma's tomb, before asking us to meet her in the Mistral Woods, which contains a hidden vault that belonged to the Herodrum long ago. We head to Corvalar and find Vigo near a pyre. He is burning the bodies of the lost knights from the mine. He tells us that he came clean to Prava about taking the woman's bribe, stating that it's looking bad. He might not even have a job when she's done with him. He says that he will join us as we go to speak to her, as she might even go easier on him if we're there. Vigo essentially only cares about himself. We find the Reverend Mother inside as she is arranging the redeployment of soldiers into the mine. She says that we must be worthy of a blessing before we can be given one. We will have to make a pilgrimage to the Alabaster Monastery to cleanse our spirit. Vigo tells us that there is a shrine to the west that bears a relic. It takes on your sin, weighing you down. It will cleanse you in the process, which prepares you to stand before the Father for judgment. He says that he will not take part as he doesn't believe that he would survive such a journey. We find the relic and complete the pilgrimage, succeeding in our atonement. Vigo skipped to the final altar as he is attempting to pray for the very first time. He is feeling guilty for taking the bribe that led to the death of his men. He questions the type of man that he is. He tells us that we're about to meet Inarius himself, and that not everybody comes back from the meeting. Like the guy's Scarface or something. We enter the Hall of Ascension, and we can find a mural on the wall that shows Inarius healing a woman that has been plagued with sickness since childhood, giving her a new life. It turns out that that woman is Reverend Mother Prava. We head into the main room, and we can see a giant mural of Inarius on the wall, as the real Inarius begins to levitate down towards us. He asks us what we want, and we tell him that we need to traverse the Black Lake but cannot do so without his blessing. He mentions that one thing that he has learned during his time in Sanctuary is what we're looking for and what we need are very rarely the same thing. He once thought that he could find an end to the war, but has never found a resolution, instead only more pain. Everything that he has done has pulled him further from the home in the heavens. He says how the world they made was born from the impossible, but much like its creators, it rots from the inside. We say that Lilith has entered the ancient city, and with his blessing we can pursue her. This really pisses off Inarius. He calls humankind weak, and that the world has been wasted on the crusades of the unworthy. We tell him that we can stop her. He says that the audience is now concluded and that we're forced to leave. We head back to the Reverend Mother and ask why Inarius is in Sanctuary. She says that it's due to penitence, that the heavens cast him down for creating humanity as it was seen as a sin. He now seeks redemption and a chance to go home. It's prophesied that slaying Lilith is that chance. Inarius believes that the prophecy describes a spear of light piercing hatred's heart. He will begin with Lilith and then move on to the prime deities, concluding the eternal conflict. We also ask about Vigo, and she says that he will do his penance. We mention that our talks with Inarius didn't go all that great, and she tells us that the fact that we even came back unscathed is approval enough, and she gives us our blessing. We head out to find Neyrelle in the woods, and we end up in a strange place filled with phantoms. We can find a wolf that tells us that we're stuck in an illusion created by the Herodrum. It shows us a portal that will lead us through the trap, taking us to a vision of Tristram. It looks quite a bit different than Diablo III. We ask the wolf who they are, and he says that he is an admirer, that he saved us in the mountains and the cave during the blizzard. We would have frozen to death if not for him. He is the demonic wolf that we saw. We ask him why he saved us, and he says that we want to stop Lilith and he wants us to succeed on our mission, but tells us that we will never succeed if we follow the Herodrum, that the Herodrum will stumble and we shouldn't be there when they do. He explains that this is Tristram, the Herodrum of the imprisoned Diablo, the Lord of Terror, beneath the earth. They built this town nearby, and as you can see, it didn't go all that well. He also tells us that he knows that we were fed Lilith's blood, and asks if we feel ourselves changing yet. With Lilith walking in our world, it's only a matter of time. We continue through the portal to Neyrelle, and she is standing inside of the old Heraldric Vault. She says that we are looking for a book that contains a spell to help us cross the Black Lake. We find the book, and Neyrelle mentions that a ledger was written by the Heraldrim, chronicling spells that were created by Rathma. That Rathma's necromancy spells could bring her mother back, since she is the only one that knows the ritual to cross the Black Lake. We make it back to the mine, and Neyrelle begins to cast the spell on her mother's body, causing her mother's soul to re-enter her body. Neyrelle tells her mother that she will find a way to save her, and Vinard responds that she cannot be saved from her own mistakes, reiterating that this body is only a husk, and Neyrelle must allow her spirit to pass on, but will help her one last time by finishing the ritual. Our blessed blood is the final key, and we're able to continue into the lair. We find remnants of Rathma, as he tells us that we are in fact the last visitor to the sanctum, and that we've come too late just like Lilith before us. He reveals that his father Inarius was actually the first to arrive, and that it unfolded just like his visions. He says how his visions began in dreams, images of an end of sanctuary. A great serpent carried these visions. His own thoughts melded with the serpent's, and the future was mended together. From this, he created the prophecy. This prophecy became his burden. He knew Inarius would be driven to interfere, believing that it was about him, since he saw himself as the savior, piercing hatred's heart in hell. So Rathma locked the gates to hell, and when Inarius found out, he would come demanding the key. We now see a glimpse of Inarius meeting with Rathma. He is mad at Rathma for standing in the way of the savior, that the holy blood in his veins should be boiling. Rathma mentions that nothing Inarius does will change the future that he saw, but Inarius mentions that he creates his own destiny. As we reach the final levels of the passage, we come across a demon that was left here by Lilith. It's a tough fight, and we are joined by a knight, Penitent, who helps us survive the fight. When the fight is over, he collapses in front of us as we begin to open up the armor. Inside is Vigo, serving his penance for his sins by helping us on our journey. He asks if Neyrelle is safe and asks us to give Vinard's charm back to her daughter, claiming that he should never have taken it. As he is dying, he mentions how it's so dark, wondering if he was too late even though he repented. We tell him that the light has come to carry him home and if he can see it. He looks over and says that he can, and that they have come to claim him before finally dying. We get another scene of Inarius telling Rathma to hand over the key. Rathma says that he saw a vision of the key being lifted from his corpse, under the eyes of the watchful serpent in his sanctum. We go into the sanctum and find the corpse of Rathma on the stairs. We reach him and get a vision. We see Lilith entering the tomb, back when we found Vinard before. We can see Rathma has been killed by a spear to the heart by Inarius. Lilith mourns her son and breaks the spear, revealing the key to hell, showing that the very thing that Inarius sought was inside the spear that he used to kill his own son. She says that the key unlocks the path to the future, and that it was only made possible due to Rathma's sacrifice. And that sacrifice will not be in vain. We leave and return to Neyrelle, and we tell her about Vigo, and return the charm. We also explain what we saw in the sanctum. We get more narration from Lorath. He explains that this young girl was seeking her mother, seeking hope but found neither. He goes on to say that her part in this story is far from over. In fact, we would need her much more than she needs us, despite not realizing this at the time. And that concludes the first act of Diablo IV. An act filled with some horrendous pirating skills, and even worse tips on hospitality. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will be releasing Act 2 within the next few days, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. I hope you have found the video fun and informative. If you did, please consider liking the video, and if you want to see more story-based videos in the future, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to comment down below the word Vigo to let me know that you made it to the end. We have a bunch of videos already on the channel, so be sure to check them out right here and see what you like. Until next time, peace.